The first presentation is by Tom Bruton. I don't think I need to go through his whole CV again, but obviously he's a principal consultant at BioXL, and he's going to talk about district heating. I'm very interested in what he's going to mention about the opportunities and how it might develop in the future, because, again, as was said earlier, it presents a lot of opportunities in the future, and it is an important and useful way of using our biomass resources. So, Tom?
Yeah, good afternoon. I did firmly suggest that I just do one talk today, which was rejected out of hand by the organisers. So that's my my position, and so I did focus my effort on the RHI as it popped up, and we'll keep this to the point and a little shorter. I mean, essentially, IrBEA got in total something like €45,000 grant of SCAI last year to do a district heat study, and IrBEA was very much supportive of this because it's a key enabling technology for biomass and other renewable technologies. And there was a team of people actually put together to look at guidance for public sector, for local authorities interested in district heating, and also to do case studies on district heating. So I'm going to talk about that briefly, and also just mention about the need for industry leadership. So actually the lion's share of the work on this was completed by CODEMA. It's Dublin's energy agency. And they do a lot of work on the Dublin Waste to Energy scheme, and have been exploring potential for district heating around parts of Dublin city or the urban environment. So they did quite an amount of work on this, and then I was tasked to do some case studies to support it. It's a public study. It's on both the SCAI website and it's on the IrBEA website. I'm certain this material will be available to everybody in due course, so that just put in the link there for reference. And it was coordinated by IrBEA, and then last October, I guess, we had a conference in the Marker Hotel to announce the results and to give something of the same presentation and flavour we had today, and that was attended by over 200 people, which showed an extraordinary level of interest in district heating. So I was sent off shopping. There's a picture missing there, isn't it? Anyway, picture missing, but I was sent off shopping to Charlestown Shopping Centre, which is just off the M50, about 5 miles north of here. Apologies, there's a picture of the buildings and things there on the paper I'm looking at here. It's a mixed retail and commercial development. There's basically a number of residential blocks, 7 or 8 of them, with 285 apartments in them, and then at the bottom of it there's almost 20,000 square metres of retail space with Bruton stores as the anchor tenant. And there's probably a similar kind of mall set up in a town near you, like there's one in Maynooth, or there's one in Letterkenny, or there's one in Kilkenny, and you drive into a great big underground car park and take the lift upstairs to the shopping centre. So that's phase one. It was built completed around 2008, and then there's big expansion a couple of years later, phase two. Phase two, there was a large Odeon cinema opened up and a leisureplex. And there's space for a lot more retail and planning for more apartments. And the whole scheme, phase one, there's a district heating scheme in the basement. There's an energy centre there. There's a gas CHP unit. There's 2 natural gas boilers. There's a 1 megawatt wood pellet boiler. and they are all connected into the same district heating header and supplying energy via a local district heating scheme or community block heating scheme to all of the different end users and buildings in that. So I mean, the piping is not actually underground. And this technically wouldn't fall into, I'm sure, the Danish definition of district heating. This was block or communal heating. But the piping actually runs, you can see in some of the pictures here, it runs overhead in the car park, mounted below the buildings, delivering heat to the various end users. A big sort of learning from that, and that was sort of why I was sent out there, was to be an engineer and to nitpick with things and to find what can we learn about this. Not everyone was connected. So despite sort of laying on a very convenient, fairly low cost, the charge there is actually 4 cents per kilowatt hour for the commercial tenants. Several of the retail units said, no, that's not for me. We're still going to go for the electric units, so we can be fully in control of our own system and our own costs, and we can get heating and cooling at the same time. There was no contractual obligation on them as part of their sort of commercial lease, particularly to sign up. I mean, the priority of the building operators and owners is, look, let's get people in trading, let's get tenants in, and give them a 5-year lease or 10-year lease. I mean, this, how you're heated is not a huge part of the commercial picture. It's there for you if you want it. Some of the units had no heating. It's a little newsagent in the middle. I went in and said, where's your heating system? Oh, I don't know, sure, everyone else he heats the building for us, it's fine. So sorry, anyway, that was sort of amusing. But the whole excuse me, so the whole scheme did get funding off SEAI to set up to deliver to everybody in the development, and not too long after the scheme was set up, it's run by a commercial management company, essentially a property management company, and they outsource the operation of the whole scheme, which is there's about 4 megawatts of thermal capacity there, and there's the 280 something residential and 20 odd retail tenants. So they take full responsibility for operating the boilers, the CHP engine, doing the fuel procurement, invoicing all the tenants, doing the meter recording, and getting paid a transparent fee for doing that, and reporting everything back to essentially to their client, the management company. And they got SEAI grant funding for that initial one. But part of the initial one was they had in mind to connect a second phase, so all of this new cinema, this new retail block, and ran district heating piping, these guys here, right up to the next block, and blanked it off ready to connect. Then 5 years later, in fairness, in the midst of a recession in 2011 or 12, and there's negotiations going on about the new cinema and how they'll be heated, and with this great district heating scheme here, they didn't go for it. There's gas. You can see the gas units on top of the cinema. It's because they actually don't have a big heat load, they have a high cooling load. And there are a lot of questions, there's no culture around district heating, less regulation around it, so they didn't go for it. Much more positive than the commercial side, the residential tenants are all connected, and it's quite effective. But they're all the whole block is owned by RHI, one of these real estate investment trusts. So there's no individual owners of those apartments, they're rented out to individuals, and this is simply part of the package, part of the system. You're a tenant of a district heating scheme. They have a very simple but effective heat interface unit. It's located outside each apartment. So instead of actually having to gain access to the apartment to do any maintenance or to take readings, you can enter externally, which is a big design improvement over some one I worked on in Cork, where you essentially have to give the tenant 3 weeks' notice to get into the house to do anything. The residential being charged a little bit more, 6 cents per kilowatt hour. And there's a very nominal standing charge, but really that's the rate. There's no alternative system, so that's a big bonus. Basically, if they don't pay, it's disconnected, and there's very few disconnects, and there's pretty much full payment there to the company operating it. I suppose as it was a case study, I said it was our job to look for areas to improve. And apologies, I'm just focusing on the case studies I was involved in. But definitely we saw bad practice, we saw good practice. Sometimes you see and this reinforced the need for kind of education and training and a general culture around district heating and how to go about it. Like certainly here on our left, we have pipes there. Pipes there supported by angle iron, and essentially cutting through the insulation and coming directly in contact with the metal, the steel pipes carrying the heat. So it's undermining the integrity of the insulation, and also creating vibrations and the potential for pipe failure down the road. So the operators were delighted. They asked me to come in after that. But I mean, in the same building side by side, then you have good practice where it's properly insulated and suspended with a proper coupling. So simple things, So say in the interest of timing, I had decided to limit this to one case study. We did more. I did one on a social housing scheme in Cork. It's 58 residential houses with social tenants in them connected to a 1 megawatt district heating scheme. It has a 500 kilowatt pellet, 500 kilowatt gas boiler. There's information, a lot of costings around that in the case study and report. And there was another one done on an as yet to be built district heating scheme in Guidor Industrial Park in Donegal. So anyway, we sat down with these case studies and feasibilities that myself and Codima had completed, and said, well, what can we learn from this, and put this into a kind of findings, and that's what I'm just going to focus on here to conclude, really. There was a lack of culture and knowledge about district heating. And I'm probably not sure we needed a report to work that out. Consumer behaviour is a key part of new connections. You saw the example there of retail. It's just, are people going to go for it? There's a similar question to the RHI. What's going to make it happen or work for them? There was a need to define tenancy relationships for district heating, and to be more aware of that in property management, and that if you invested in a scheme that you made, you want people to use that asset. Anchor loads, is stating the obvious. Anchor loads, heat density were a major factor for the viability where new examples were looked at. There was a feasibility assessment done of Killarney, which involved bringing a number of hotel sites together. That's there in sort of outline feasibility within the work published there. A key theme from across all of them, and came back to the earlier thing about, district heat as an enabling technology, was, you might not need to get the same rate of return or the same expectation of return, that district heating is more of a long-term asset, and that there's a need to consider those assessments over a longer time frame. There's plenty of precedent there where if ESB networks, or I'm not sure what it is with Bord Gáis, but I know for sure ESB networks, if they put in a transformer, it's on a 50-year horizon. It's not for a 15-year project life, There was a lot of unclarity. There was a lack of clarity. So I just invented a new word. Lack of clarity around planning exemptions. And a lot of this came down to maybe difficulties in the wind industry or in the electricity industry, where there's a planning process called Section 5 exemption, where instead of applying for planning permission to dig up the road and put in a pipe, you could go off and get a declaration from the council that no, you don't need planning permission to do this. But we talked to several people and got different opinions, and nobody could really say to my satisfaction anyway that no, definitively you don't need to go and ask the council for planning permission for district heating pipe in an industrial estate in Donegal, for example. You know, it just hasn't come up really under planning guidance, or exemptions are being addressed properly from a legal point of view, in my opinion. Also, there was a lot of sort of concerns around setting a fair heat price and around regulation. And a bit of mistrust there, as you know, that example of signing up to a commercial developer or a commercial tenant and say, well, what are they? Okay, it's 4 cents this year. What will it be next year? And you know, what are my options? Part of that is culture and education, and say, well, look, we're all sort of stuck with the service providers we have, and competition is good, but you know, and maybe there is a need for a regulatory role or somebody to act as a policeman, essentially, or woman to intermediate if there's problems there with pricing. Sorry, I'll just not keep an eye on the time here, race through things. There was a lack of confidence about O&M, and I know there's about 5 people who come forward and say, oh, no, we can do that. But just as somebody, like I worked with Cork County Council last year trying to procure services and with others, and you know, while there was a response from market when you look for somebody to operate a district heating scheme, it wasn't overwhelming. That you know, you struggle to get almost the minimum required for public procurement or to have local providers. You know. Yeah. I mean, look, just to sort of speak to the IrBEA audience, yes, district heating should be happening, but it's only part of the picture, and renewable heat supports are absolutely and fully necessary as part of the picture if decarbonisation is part of district heat delivery, in addition to waste heat and fossil fuel heat. And that's it. From the case study, and something that did, you know, there was a need expressed by nearly everyone we spoke to for kind of industry cooperation, industry representation, something David Connolly spoke about earlier, and I, speaking with him since as well, expressed a keen desire to be involved with any efforts to get the industry or people interested in district heating to sit around the table and work on prospects for the future together. Things that should happen to promote district heating, training, standards, good practice, just even networking, knowing who else is facing the same challenges as you, knowledge sharing, it's important. Things there like that sort of issue around planning, simple things that, you know, everybody in the industry will want clarity on. I say, well, God, do I need to go and make a planning application or not? It's just definitive stuff, you know. And where district heat sits, it was actually, I didn't mention it earlier, but it's a big absence in the renewable heat incentive. I do think it's encompassed in the UK one, but where so things like that. So look, anyway, thanks for listening to me again, and that was sort of some of the case studies and feedback from the district heating study, which was generously funded by SCAI, and also but IrBEA generously appointed me to deliver part of. So, thank you.